Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a podcast where we gather around and share music with each other. All friends sharing music, having fun, talking stuff. I'm Peter Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me, of course, is my team, my squad. We've got Brett.
That really is Raven. So yes. Raven.
We've got Drew.
I'm going to try not to touch my shitty XLR cable this week.
Yes. You can certainly try. Who knows what will happen. And we've got Patrick.
Hello.
Yes. And of course, this week we have a guest. It's been a little while since we had a guest. We have Roberto in the center.
How's it going, everybody? It's funny because I don't know if anyone who's ever watching video, who's ever not watching video, it's weird because we were able to see kind of feedback. And I kind of feel like I'm the middle Brady right now because I'm able to angle my finger and point to whoever I want to and say, hey, Drew, how's it going? Or actually that was Petey. Hey, Petey, how's it going? Over here is like, hey, Drew. And then I think this is Patrick. Well, you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's weird being in this like box zone type thing on the video.
Yeah, it's fun. So we got Roberto kind of trapped in there, which is fun. We're here to talk about music, and of course, while we have Roberto trapped in there, he's going to be providing. Well, I guess not so much him providing it because I kind of just brought him in, already giving him an album because it's kind of what we do, where we bring a returning guest, we give him an album for whatever reason we want to.
Well, I think I was talking with Bryce about this because we just got done filming something for Scam School, and I mentioned I was going to come on Record Breakers for this album, and I was making a joke of like, am I the resident Mega Ran expert now in this regard? Like as a member of the NPC, as a member of all these sort of things, as a guy that's gone to about 1,020 different shows. The joke I'll make is international shows as well because I'm going to get to Japan. I was like, am I now the expert where it's like, shit, we need someone to talk about Extra Credit, Rand's new album. Hey, Robert, you free?
Yes. Well, it's more like I kind of want to have I kind of want to cheat and do this album and my own album. Robert, you free?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, totally. And again, I was like, yeah, for sure, I could talk about Rand for hours. That's at this point in time, I'm more joking just because of the fact I was like, oh yeah, no, totally, I could do this. It just was so funny. It was like, oh, well, that sounds about right. And I was like, is PD theming this, which is totally fine. I'm always happy to be on this show.
Mega Ran's Extra Credit. Plus, we'll get a chance to have you on and Drew to talk about Mega Ran together.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's right. I forgot the last time that there was a Mega Ran album. I listened to it a lot and then didn't end up talking about it.
It's okay. It happens.
But we're making up for it. Here to talk about Mega Ran's Extra Credit. Let's talk about some expectations. I'll start with Brett. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, I mean, we have covered Mega Ran, and we have covered other people. Familiar faces are on this album that we have covered in the past as well. I personally haven't really revisited in a bit, so I wasn't opposed to listening to more. But I really didn't know if I was going to come into a fusion jazz crazy reimagining of his musical persona. But
because I remember the last time I was here, I think you were the one that had not heard for Famicom, and that was new and exciting to you at the time, and you had never got into that. So at least that's you've probably hopefully done other albums as well. But I remember that was the one thing. You're like, I've never heard this. This is awesome. This is well produced.
Yeah, we did R&DM in the meantime, which is really cool.
Right.
And we did Samus as well.
Yeah, so. Samus as well, which is awesome. Patrick, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I enjoyed Mega Ran. I had not heard this yet when we decided to talk about it, because apparently it just came out a month and a half ago. So I was happy to listen to a new Mega Ran album. He's good people. That's how I will describe him in my couple of times of meeting him in brief times. He's good people.
He is in fact good people. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, I hadn't heard anything weird about this album coming out of you or Mr. Roberto over there. So I figured, unlike Brett, I was pretty safe to say that this wasn't going to be the Childish Gambino's last record of Mega Ran's. Like, this isn't going to be him
Or the
going
Bad
off
Rabbits.
on
The American
yeah, or
Nightmare.
the like weird Bad Rabbits tangent or anything like that. I knew he didn't go like off the rails and do something strange because like y'all both would have been on Twitter like, the hell, this is awesome, but like this is weird. Like, so I was expecting to get some good rapping and some good production quality and some great beats, and going from there, being pretty familiar with the nerdcore scene and Mega Man in general. But.
Yeah.
Drew, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, and we could talk about what it is music and what the album is. Roberto, how would you describe this album musically? What would be kind of themes and elements that permeate it?
Extra Credit's an interesting one because the last album R&DM had was sort of the introspective sort of wave of things, but between R&DM and this, a lot of things in Rand's life has happened in terms of new music. And in fact, this one has like a lot of remixes on there, but I'd say like thematically, it's funny because if I kind of have a thing I say with nerdcore, especially nerdcore hip hop, is there's nothing different between nerdcore and hip hop. They're both the same thing. It just happens to be what they talk about, subject matter. This one is one of the few albums I've had of Rand's where I feel it's more hip hop than nerdcore, if that means anything. In that it feels more like an album that if I have a friend that isn't really in nerdcore but like loves things like Childish Gambino or loves like hip hop, like this is the kind of thing I could say here. Like one of a mutual friend of all of ours here, Brant Hughes, I could say here, you should listen to Extra Credit. I'm sure you're going to like it a lot more than say a Forever Famicom or even an R&DM. It just feels that way. So I guess thematically it's the same Rand. It's nothing. I say nothing new in a good way in that it is him evolving and progressing and making better stuff. But it's interesting because I think even R&DM had this, but this one feels even more so. Just so many different producers are on here and different kind of styles that make it for me hard to pinpoint what if there's a theme for the album, because it's like it's Rand doing what Rand does best, and then having producers that do what they do best and mixing it. But that's not unusual for Rand. That's sort of like, as I say, it's par for the course, but it's like it's the idea of like, oh yeah, you knocked out another solid 10, versus oh, last time you also knocked out a solid 10. It's like it's that kind of like, how do you explain thematically this is a great album, much like your last album was also a great album,
Yeah. I think this one is more of what Random does. Like, it's more of his storytelling, more of it's like his incredible flow, more, and I think even more, like I said, more personal even than R&DM. And R&DM was already had touches of like,
and that's sort of the thing. And I can't remember if the story. I was trying to look at the site because I remember either he had tweeted it out, posted it, something along the lines, because it's been like a lot. It's because it's funny, unless you're kind of part of the Patreon, you don't kind of get a lot of the stuff, or if you're not familiar with a lot of the other stuff. Because between R&DM and now, he's had a track on Hero Music Volume 2. He's done some stuff with Kadesh Flow in terms of church, and other things have come out. And so it's weird for me hearing that when the album was going, I was like, oh, cool, it's a new album, but not like it wasn't things I hadn't heard yet, either in a live show or this. And even before that whole thing, like last year South by, he'd come out with a sort of a interesting cover project. And I say cover project because it's not really covers, but they're just sort of using the beats and sort of making new songs based on them for off beats from like Biggie, from Notorious B.I.G. songs. And so it's been like a lot of things like
a celebration of the anniversary of Ready to Die.
Exactly.
Life After Death.
Right. And it's so it's hard for me to explain, like, that's been his style. Like, his style is storytelling, flow, and all that stuff. And that's why it's such a hard thing for me to explain all this. I mean, there's some interesting things track-wise in each one of those sort of things and what they mean. But it's one of those things I'm just like, this is definitely an interesting album, because just a lot of weird things have happened between Extra Credit and now, and some of them are like like we were, I think it was Classic Game Fest, because there's a note that the album's dedicated to Rustin, one of the band members of Verzen, which is sort of one of the sort of video game kind of like weird bands, part of Austin. And we were just, it was Classic Game Fest when I think it might have been the next day we're there on stage, and you know, like the day prior was when he passed, or something along those lines, like somewhere around there is when it happened, which is a very weird day to sort of have sort of a person that, if you know anything of the history of Ran, was a important person, not just in the scene, but just in all of our lives. I wasn't super familiar with the guy, but I knew who he was. I knew of Verzen, and I've heard of the name many times. And it was like weird day, and kind of like, so there's been a lot of, for lack of better words, life in Rand's sort of sphere between then and now, and a lot of that music sort of reflects it. But that's sort of what he does. That's not. There's no. It's not like. Like you're talking. I think it was Drew. It's not like here's the crazy fusion jazz album. If he did, that'd be fine. But it's just sort of, it's him doing what he does best and then some.
Yeah,
I guess.
And he does it fantastically. Brett.
Yeah.
What would be the themes elements that caught your attention? How would you describe this album musically?
Well, there's a lot here that, I kind of expected. If you want some lyrics on top of some classic game tunes, they got some of that, but not exclusively. There are a few familiar faces that show up on this album, and, they all put on a very good performance. If you want a song with Samus, they got you. If you want some Cisco,
about to say we shouldn't bury the lead right there.
Yeah, we'll talk
Cisco's
about
on this album.
Yeah, we'll talk about Cisco in a moment. But yeah, as you were saying, Brett.
Yeah, like if you want a song about Harper Lee, they got that too. Covering all the musical bases. That
musical bass, Harper Lee.
Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird. It's the basis for all the punk rock albums that I bring. But no, there are a few remixes on this album that that are really good. That I was very familiar to me. But like, if you're at all familiar with the writing style, the more personal stories and life experiences, there's a lot of that. If you're coming to listening to this show without hearing the album, you're kind of losing it. Also, if you're coming for your nerdcore and or hip hop knowledge from Brett Hibbard, you're probably knocking on the wrong doors. But this is a very it's storytelling without being preachy. And it's not a dick measuring contest. It's quite the opposite. It's more of a dick shrinking of it's a very exposing all of the tender vittles to all of humanity and expressing oneself in a genre that is not normally, one where you're exposing all of your weak points. It's a lot of times
fast growing where you
way.
do, I think, in different spheres. I think the democratization of hip hop has brought that out more. Patrick, what would be the themes elements that caught your attention?
I think it was talked about, sort of Roberto talking about like nerdcore versus rap in general, and I think this is. Rap is the origins of it were based in storytelling over a beat, usually made out of something borrowed and chopped up, and in that sense,
like wood.
Them's the breaks, I believe.
It all started with the DJ, and then came the MC to hype it up, and then they started telling the stories while they're up there.
Yeah.
Want a great summation of that? Watch Hip Hop Evolution. I think it's still on Netflix, and that gives you a lot of history about this genre, from where nerdcore is now to where hip hop is today, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. But as you were saying, Patrick.
So and in that sense, like this is a hip hop record. Like this is mostly Mega Ran telling stories. They just are not the same stories you would have heard, in the 90s on a hip hop record, or even more recently than that. But this is a combination of what I would say is more traditional hip hop and more of sort of the nerdcore-ness is that there are Nintendo sounds being used as source material for creating a lot of the actual music that is rapped over. Thematically, this is mostly songs that are pretty serious and introspective. There's some fun shit too, but it's not, this is an album just, Mega Ran telling stories about life and what he thinks about things. And for that, that is what he does best.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does it fantastically. Drew, what would be the theme song that caught your attention? How would you describe this album musically?
The thing about this album is that, one, if we're talking about the nerdy side of this album, the samples, as they were in a few of the songs, snuck up on me a number of times. There's a point in the song, I'll bring it up later when I go over it, but I was like, oh wait, fucking Mario, isn't it? That was okay. It just sort of snuck into the beat, and I didn't realize it until the second or third time listening to it, mostly because I think that track also, there was a platinum-haired guy in it, which was weird. But, like you guys have said, the thing that I like in hip-hop and in rap music is, from the poetry side of it, is the storytelling, is the... I'm probably going to reiterate this pretty soon, I don't know, but I want to hear the person's point of view. I want to hear what their world is, because walking through somebody else's shoes is hard, but hearing their story and hearing their outlook on life is really cool. And that, I think, like you said, PD, is actually what's cool about coming up now within the rap scene and the hip hop scene, is that they're going away from the bravado, money cash hose sort of lifestyle bits and doing actual commentary and actual thought process into what they really think, and they're letting themselves be vulnerable. And I think Mega Ran does that very, very well. He's also a smart dude. He was a teacher, so obviously a smart dude. So having that come through in...
That's some pretty dumb
dude.
Teachers.
Well, but he was he's a smart teacher.
Yes, he is a smart dude.
Fair point.
He's a smart guy.
How many teachers have you had in your life that open up every class with the hip hop song? Let's go through that. How many teachers have you had in your life?
I knew a teacher once that had an LSD flashback.
American public schools have failed me. I have not had either one of those experiences.
That's why he's a smart teacher.
It was an art teacher.
Who did no shit. Don't say.
I would have been my two guesses. I would have been one of my two guesses.
Very well known for doing drugs, and then she stood there and stared off into space for a second, and then very quickly realized what was happening to herself and had to snap herself out of it. And was like, great, cool, thanks. I almost name dropped right there. That would have been mean.
That would have been mean. I would have guessed art teacher or music teacher.
Yeah, it was art teacher.
Yes.
Our music teacher was also weird, but that's a story for another day. But also, there is a lot of different producers on this record, and there is a lot of different sounds because of it, but it's all done to a very, very well-polished degree. Sometimes when you get a lot of cooks in the kitchen, it can sort of muddy the overall product, and I don't think that happened here. The tracking and the layering within that, and a couple of the songs having very different sounds than you would normally get from a hip-hop record, I think was really, really cool, and something that I think a lot of people, even if you don't necessarily like rap music, could find something to dig into on that, even if you don't necessarily like the rapping behind it. There's still some cool musical quality to it. So.
Yeah, there's a lot to really enjoy musically throughout the whole album. With that diversity, and we can start drilling down now to talk about some of the key tracks. Roberto, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I mean, the question is, do you want me to bury the lead, or should we just jump straight to Church Part 2?
You steer the ship.
only because I don't think you guys know the history of this song, and that's kind of why I wouldn't mind jumping. Because it is one of my favorite songs. There's a couple other ones for sure, but I might as well at least get this out of the way. So, Church, I guess part one or the first version of Church was actually because you brought up that the Mario sample snuck up on you, Drew, with that. Mm-hmm. Originally, Church 1, we'll say Church Prime, Church Part 1, however you want to refer to it, was a joint between of obviously Mega Ran and fellow NBC member and fellow awesome hip hop artist Kadesh Flow. If you have not checked out Kadesh Flow, you really should. Amazing individual, cool amazing musician, lyricist. I think he plays trombone. Like it's super ultra talented and awesome guy. But so they did Church, and it's a great song, and it has that kind of same beat and thing, whatever. But between then and like now, somehow, like I think it might have actually been at like Kinda Funny Live or something or somehow Ran and Cisco met, and I forget exactly the story because I've never had the chance to ask. It had to have been
Kinda Funny Live.
If it was kind of funny because I couldn't remember where. It's one of those things, and somehow he knew of it. Like somehow all this sort of happened, and when he tweeted that out that he was working on a track with Cisco, I was like thong songs. Like my brain had to double check not because I don't think that there's another Cisco out there in terms of that the food musician style. Company. Well, the thing there's networking Cisco. There's the Cisco. It could be some side like. Now. Are you talking like thong song Cisco? Like we're talking like that motherfucker Cisco?
Like, yes, I could have sworn awesome. They became
platinum haired, silk collared shirts Cisco.
Because like that's,
lest we forget Grammy nominated artist Cisco.
Yeah, Wild West Cisco. Like everything that goes down with the name Cisco.
Motherfucker can sing a hook. Dude deserves to be at least nominated for a Grammy.
And that's sort of what I'm getting at is when there's something cool and there's something amazing for me as a friend to have like that weird degree connection to like somebody. Like in other words, there are times when you can say a thing about a friend and say, oh yeah, he's done this or whatever. There's another thing when I could say, yeah, I have a friend of mine who did a song with Cisco, and I could say it to my brother, and he'd go, like, all the things I just said, Cisco. And I'll say, yeah. And that's kind of awesome. Like, that's, like, super freaking cool that we're at a point now in music where that's happening because of all this stuff. And Church itself is a great song. It was already a great song prior to the Cisco featuring Cisco version. It's just insane now that I have an album done by a friend who does excellent music. Oh, and Cisco's on there too. That's a weird world to be part of. I'm sorry if I'm saying it like that, but it kind of rattles my brain that that's where we're at now in nerdcore. That it's like
you have 2 degrees of separation from Cisco.
Yeah, that's so. I don't
also Ackerman.
Right, and I don't. I'm not the kind of person to name drop because I don't really like to do that because that's not really my style. But it's one of those things I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm proud of my friend for doing this. That's awesome. Like it's one of those moments I'm like when I see Rand next, I'm just gonna say that's fucking pimp. Like that's awesome. Like I'm happy. And it's a good song because it's Church, but it's even crazier. That's like you have fucking Cisco on the album. That's a name that I could tell again people that don't know nerdcore. I could say, here, check this out. Cisco's on it. Oh shit, I haven't heard Cisco in forever. And then listen to it, go like, this is badass. And then go on from there. But if I were to say like songs that actually kind of snuck up on me on the album, I would say Pursuant Hearts. Just because I'd never heard the producer on there, Kaito Kobayashi, and it was a weird song in that the lyrics are great and the story is amazing and cool, but it's one of those songs that like, man, there is no reason this shouldn't be playing at a club right now. Like there's no reason this shouldn't be spinning at some bar, at some popular bar on 6th Street and in Miami, wherever. Like there's no reason that shouldn't be playing there because it has that kind of like beat, it has that kind of dance, and you can see yourself kind of grooving to it. But it's also a damn good song, and I think that's like it's those that kind of snuck on me, the ones like, this feels great here. This is an amazing, perfect thing. There is no reason this shouldn't be way bigger than it is. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone else agrees or disagrees.
We'll see what everyone else thinks. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, Old Enough. It's one of those great songs that tells the story of being buried in debt because you followed your dreams, and telling people that the way to fame and fortune is not normally through art. It's by doing the easy thing. It's the less hookers and blows side of being a performer. And as somebody who has spent a lot of time dealing with washed up old musicians, it's not uncommon. There are a whole lot more people that don't make it than do. And even those who make it, quote unquote, it's not always making it. It ain't easy out there. It also does it in a very non-preachy way. It doesn't really tell anybody what to do. It just, it's personal experience, which is way better than a guy in his mid-30s telling the kids how to not do things. Church Part 2. I enjoyed the Mario music. I enjoyed the Gangsta's Paradise-esque choir. That's always a good little piece to throw in the back. Also Cisco shows up. In my listens, that song probably stuck out more than any other. Just in, it just like I always saw myself looking down being like, oh, hey, when I was looping through. And it's really well produced. I mean, like a lot of the songs on this, it's obviously somebody put a lot of care into it, but there's going to be no shortage of us talking about tracks on this song, but those are two that really stuck with me.
Yeah, those are fantastic tracks. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I'll jump right into Church Part 2. We've already talked about it, but we didn't talk about it. The music is Bowser's Castle music, but like used in hip hop and like in a totally makes sense and wonderful kind of way. Like this is like Super Mario World Bowser's Castle, I believe.
Typically it's actually, if you want to be thematically correct in terms of what it samples, it's sampling the castle music for every Koopa kid that you fight in Super Mario World. If you want to be hyper accurate.
But like that music, which is iconic to someone my age who grew up on that game, but like used in hip hop perfectly, and also motherfucking Cisco singing a hook. Cisco can sing a hook. I don't care. And I was like, I saw Cisco. Wait, that's Cisco. Wait, what? And good for Rand. Good for Rand for making a friend.
Come next South by, because I'm pretty sure Kadesh will be in town again. I'm gonna have to ask him who he thinks who did it better, him or Cisco.
Oh God!
I'm gonna ask him as a joke, just because it's Ryan and I could joke with him.
Fam,
but
fam.
Like musically, it's a really cool song, and like hip hop doesn't always for me have the best music, but like this is the best music. It's really good. Old Enough. I will say it because I love Samus. Samus is awesome. She's one of my favorite rappers going right now, and she's on this. But I also like the subject matter. I like that it is very much a song about that sort of weird tweener age where you're not an adult and not a kid and still trying to figure shit out. And then because it's so weirdly literary, Mockingbird. Who knew you needed a hip hop track about To Kill a Mockingbird and sort of its place in the world? And
it features Germicide, who's already also an amazing artist who's been on prior Rand tracks and his own stuff too. It like, even for me,
that song's on there now, where there's few schools throughout the United States that are thinking about pulling that book, which is
because it makes people uncomfortable, because that's the point of the goddamn book.
Yeah, it's the point of the point of Kill a Mockingbird. It's supposed to make you feel strange and why the hell is this happening?
Criticism
Books
you can make of that book, but making children uncomfortable is not part of it.
No, that's the point. And that's why I was
and it's again, like, I like, and I think this has happened maybe both organically and because of sort of nerdcore becoming closer to mainstream, is that like hip hop and its topics have really expanded in the sort of subject matter that is normal and acceptable in a hip hop track. And we've seen that in other albums we've talked about here, but like this is literally just a song about a book. Yeah. And like, I guess we did an album about Moby Dick once, but
I mean,
you know,
I mean, and I don't think that's unique to Ran. I mean, for Lord's sakes, he's been on MC Lar. He was second on MC Lar's song about freaking Edgar Allan Poe.
But it's something that didn't happen 20 years ago.
It ain't hoes in different area codes.
It's something that has really, I think, changed in the last 15 years as has become something that is more normal. That like you can sing about different subject matters, and we're getting really different and unique voices in hip hop from all sorts of worlds.
I think as different genres were previously more specialized and specific, now, especially within hip hop and nerdcore, they've all kind of grew and expanded and democratized and broke out of the idea that nerdcore has to be this thing it has to be this quirky, weird hip hop about specifically these specific nerdy things. Because they never had to be that. They just started as that because those were the few that did it, were into those things. Everything kind of started expanding and started to get closer to each other and then intermingling. And, Del the Funky Homo Sapien had proto-culture.
I mean, we're all geeks and nerds of something. And I mean, it's not like, I said before, and I'll say it again, it's not like there wasn't nerdy things in hip hop. We could just put Wu-Tang Clan. We just insert Wu-Tang Clan here.
Yeah.
And realize that all those.
Yeah, like also East 99 Eternal by Bone Thugs and Harmony sampled 3 songs sampled Eternal Champions.
Yeah, there's we could just start just put any of the things that you think are kind of less dorky. I mean, even I think Little Flip way back in the day had sampled Pac-Man for Game Over, which isn't really. I mean, it itself isn't nerdcore, but that's what I'm saying is that geek stuff has always been in some capacity in hip hop. Yeah, we're just now starting to see more.
Let us not forget the original nerdcore, the original proto nerdcore group, Buckner and Garcia. Drew,
the motherfucking Donkey Kong, everybody.
Drew,
screw that. It's all about Centipede.
Yes, Drew. What would be some of the key tracks for you?
All of you. God damn it! All right,
magic twanger, Froggy.
Look. If you're scared, go to church.
I think we all skipped the beginning track, which is very on record breakers of us. Because I'm about to do the same thing. Because Pursuant Hearts, grabbed me really quick. Like that sort of 80s inspired like a bass riff in it, and like that whole bit. Very much my aesthetic right now, as I've said over the past couple episodes. Jesus Christ, that was freaking great. Church Part 2. One, having it follow up Bliss of Solitude and being a little, like, not very, like, it's still Mega Ran, but, like, having a bit more, like, in your face, like, hey, like, this is still fun. Like, I'm doing fun things. And so, like, and having Cisco on the track. Like, we've all said it, and we've all said it in joke, but like, dude can sing a goddamn hook. Like, and it's unfair that he is now the thong song guy, but
no, but I mean,
dude,
like that
dude's probably not mad about it. Like,
no, I mean, the thing is that like the reason we know that is because the hook was fucking good. Like, we know the things he does because these are really good hooks. It's not like, yes, he does other stuff and he's done other things. It's just that's just like there's nothing wrong with that being your like remembered song, because I mean maybe you're happy it's that and not Wild Wild West.
He still had a prolific career with Drew Hill.
He's done a lot of things. It's it's insane to like, I'm with Drew. It's just like it's crazy.
Yeah, as you were saying,
you're okay by me, Dragon, but also, like, usually I'm not the guy to delve into the remixes on an album. Usually I come for the new stuff, and the remixes are just sort of there and I skip them. But holy shit, your favorite songs remix was dope. Like, there was that, like, that Ghostbusters ass sound like remix was the best thing. Like, again, like I said, usually like the remixes are just tacked on and it's all right. And this is the first time where like or not the first time, but this is the second time in recent memory that a remix has come out and like, this is really fucking good. Like, I'm super down.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are some fantastic tracks, and like you did touch on, I'm glad we got a chance to touch on like Mockingbird, which was fantastic and cool subject matter and a cool telling of that story. Another great song that I don't want to lose track of, just because I like the feel of it in the first couple of tracks, Airplane Mode on the Go.
Yeah.
It's just such a cool song and such a fun song. It has such a like great like hook to it. And it's fun. It's just fun to sing along while I'm in the car. Like I have it like it's when I'm in the car and drive, airplane mode. I'm like, yeah, airplane mode on the go. We're on the go. And it's just me in my car just doing it, singing out loud, not giving a fuck. It's just fantastic, and this is just a bunch of fantastic tracks. Let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. Brett, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
I mean, this is another album that's obviously a labor of love. It's not easy, working on the road and then finding yourself into a studio. If you're a fan of previous works, this will be up your alley. This gets the Brett Hibbard certified dank seal of approval. It's well put together. It does things that I didn't expect. It has faces that show up that I didn't expect, and I'm better for having heard it.
Yeah. Patrick, what would be your conclusion on this album?
I think we talked about it. Like hip hop has become a really different genre with different voices, and like hip hop is like when you're a suburban white kid, you don't always get to identify with the subject matter, but like I have things in common with Mega Ran, like many things, like our whole like education background and that we like video games, and it's fun to hear someone who has like a whole different life experience than me, but like also we have a bunch of stuff in common, talk about their life and their experiences. And I think that is a good thing to have in music, especially hip hop, where it is so driven by stories and personal things. Mm-hmm. So this is a good one. Go listen to it. It's not my favorite Mega Ran record, but still really good.
Yeah. Drew, what is your conclusion on this?
My conclusion is that this album is really good. And it's the first time in a while or the first time period, I think actually, that I've thought about, like I've sat down and thought about like, is the Nerdcore label really important anymore? And I think less and less it is. Like I think more and more you see people putting those types of stories in hip hop. When you had hip hop that most of what you were getting in the mainstream was a very specific thing, whether it be just holdovers from gangster rap or the party rap scene or whatever. You had like a very specific crowd for that. And then you had the type of people that were like, I'm not like everybody else and I'm sort of weird and I'm over on this other thing now. And I think more and more you're getting that. I mean, Chance got a Grammy. like at this point, like being honest and being yourself and having that be the main part is sort of what's getting more and more radio play. And I think more and more you're going to see, in my opinion, the people like this come out, because this is just good, honest music. Just like it has been said, telling a story, telling you who they are, and putting it all out there on the table and having a good time doing it and making something that's enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah. Mega Ran has consistently been one of my favorite musicians, artists, anything, creators, period. And he's just a cool dude. This is a really cool personal album, and I I think it was a fantastic progression from everything before into kind of like bringing in what he's done since becoming Mega Ran, and bringing it back to being more opening more of himself, as he's been doing for a little while now. It's such a cool personal album, such a great, varied, diverse album. And yeah, Nerdcore. It's like the more and more I think about it, especially with this album, especially with Samus creating a lot of what she does, where it's super personal, super smart, and everything kind of like merging together with all the people that we hang out with at their Nerdcore shows. It's Nerdcore. At some point, it stopped being a genre and just became a community. Like it's a community. It's not a specific genre, not a specific you in that on that same show you had Mega Ran, you had MC Frontalot, you had MC Lars, and you had the Crayon Droids for about 5 minutes because everything ran late. But that's neither here nor there. But you had like Crayon Droids. Like they're how out of left field are they? But they're fantastic and super fun, especially if it was a live show. But like the diversity even on that show, I'm talking about the Nerdcore show, the Nerdcore showcase that happens every year at South by Southwest. That I make a point of making a standard when I go to South by, because of the community that's there. The music is so good. And it's all, I think, in the nucleus right now of that scene, that community, is Mega Ran, and he's such a huge part of that. Roberto.
I'm only laughing because I was literally having that exact same similar conversation with the Persona, another Nerdcore artist, about that as well. It's weird looking at this album now and seeing names that I have seen multiple times, I have either chatted with multiple times, hung out with, and heard their progression in music from beginning to now. It's hard for me to pick. Like when you came to all the tracks, I picked the 2 tracks that kind of just came to mind, not because everything else was bad, just everything else was. It was like, here you go. Here are 10 amazing things and 4 really cool interpretations of things you've heard before. Which do you choose, sir? And it's like, but if I were to give final thoughts on this, and especially on this album, it is. You're absolutely right, PD, in that Nerdcore is less of a genre and more of a community and more of this sort of thing that exists. And everyone's sort of right in that this is. That doesn't matter anymore. I never thought it did, and what's funny when you mentioned like the idea of hip hop and Nerdcore doesn't matter anymore, and I realized this I was at an MC Chris concert with MC Lars and Ran opening, and Ran goes up and does his thing, and I'm turning it up and doing all the kind of things, and I look around me and no one's doing anything else, and I was like, why is nobody doing all this stuff that I'm so used to doing? And then it hit me. Oh shit, I've been at hip hop concerts the entire time. And it was that like weird epiphany moment where it's like, oh, I've never been to a Nerdcore show like this. I've been to hip hop shows. It just so happens they were talking about nerdy things. And I think that's the best way I can explain Extra Credit. It is a hip hop album with a nerdy subject matter. And that's not bad. That's actually good. Because if you think of like, we're talking about like, storytelling and artists that have things. Like, in other words, when you talk, like there's artists that you talk about today, and it's not because, like, I'll put it this way. You can joke about things like Still Fly, that hip hop song by, I think it was the Big Timers or whatever, the Gator Boots, that kind of song back from the 90s. This is the kind of album music. Thank you. Thank you for finishing. This is the kind of album that 5 years from now I could play and still get something new from it. And in that 5 years, I would have heard it like 200 times. Yeah. And I think that's important to state about this, is that kind of song, this kind of album that has enough going on because it's well produced, solidly done. Everybody on there. It's actually one of the guy that mastered it, K Murdoch, is also an amazing producer, and he's the guy that did the production for Journey, the first track. And so everything is on here is great, and it's that kind of album that I know that if I want to get somebody into this genre or the idea of this hip hop is more than what you think it is, and can be more than what you interpret it as or what you think is being sold by certain subgenres within hip hop that's kind of getting more traction versus that, I will present them with this and say, if you don't like this, chances are you just don't like hip hop, period. Yeah. And then if they say, well, I like this, well, then let me introduce you to Samus. Let me introduce you to Gadesh Flow. Let me give you Creative Mind Frame. Let me give you all these other artists that are here in this weird thing we call nerdcore. And if none of that seems to be up your alley, well, at least you've got one album out of the deal. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then
I mean, that's a weird way of explaining his album.
Yeah. No, it was I think a succinct way to explain the album. Also, if you get into this genre and this community, you might end up going to Austin and riding a packed train with Creative Mind Frame randomly in the middle of the night.
Who, by the way, and it's funny, Emmanuel also knows One Up. He's known Creative Mind Frame. He was the sax on I think it's specifically it's Eyes on Your Paper, which which I love that song. That was a really cool thing. But I was like, when the sax kicked in, I was like, is that Manuel? And I had to double check, and I was like, well, I don't see him credited on the song, so maybe not. And I look at the credits now, like, oh no, it was Creative Mind Frame. I was like, yeah, of course it was. Of course it's him on sax. Who else would it be?
All right, so let's get into the main event of the evening. It's kind of we've said a lot, so let's get it into home plate. Main event of the evening, the haiku reviews, talk about the song in poetic form. Let's get around the horn. Brett, what is your haiku?
One of the good guys. It's what you've come to expect. A lovely album.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, what is your haiku? What? Patrick, you're quiet.
Sorry. Mega Ran returns with his unique take on rap. Another good one.
Yeah. Drew, what is your haiku?
An old favorite, still making some great music. Communicator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works. My haiku, smart and personal. Stories from Nerdcore's champion. Rand keeps stepping up. And Roberto, what is your haiku?
So because I've said everything I need to say about the album, my haiku is a bit meta. I am doing this because I need to burn time till Odyssey.
Exactly.
Right there with you, buddy.
Bro, we got our... I don't have a Switch, but I will buy one in the future just to play Odyssey.
Mine's on the charger, so I can play tomorrow.
Yeah.
I
look forward to it.
I'm walking out of my job at Best Buy with a cartridge to put in my face.
Exactly. Yes. But yeah, those are our thoughts on Mega Ran's extra credit. Roberto, quickly, let us know what's going on in your world. What do you got?
The usual podcasting, the usual recording, the usual stuff. Actually, I'm right now. Tomorrow I will be finalizing all of the deets for Extra Life this year when I'll be doing my 24-hour gaming thing. I just need to kind of get last second stuff done, record a video to promote it. But if you just want to keep up with whatever the heck I do, you can follow me at Vincent404 there on the Twitters. That's the easiest place to get a hold of me and find out what the heck I do, where I do it, and why I do it.
Yes. And you can, of course, listen to this album on Spotify, on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Listen along at home.
And I should stress, if you like it, buy it. Because while Spotify gives a little bit of change, and by a little bit, I really truly mean a little bit, microfractions of cents. If you enjoyed it, go buy the album anywhere you buy music, because this is it helps the artists out. And
try it on Spotify. See if you like it. Try it out on Spotify, on our Spotify playlist. See if you like it. But go buy it. Check them out on Bandcamp, and other places as well.
He has a Patreon if you're into that.
Yes, you can do the thing. Of course, on that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, which is, of course, my pick. And if you were listening to last week, you already know what my pick is. But it's going to be cool. It's going to be interesting. I think it's an album, the first one where I'm going in blind myself, even though I picked it. But technically not anymore because I've listened to it. But we're talking about Kendrick Lamar's Damn. That's going to be an interesting discussion. Speaking of hip hop, that goes different places.
Drew seems excited for some Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
No, he just is excited at the end of the show all the time. He's just like pumping his arms and.
Yeah. He's also been cappied. I think it's just Mario possessed him. He's got the mustache too. The Mario hat and the mustache. He's been cappied.
And the Italianness.
Yeah, the Italianness. Of course, you can find us all over the internet. Patrick is at the Swagger. Brett is the Hibbity Bibbert. HIBBI2IBIBBARD. Drew is Dex for X. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakerPodcast@gmail.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. You can email us. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and other places. Subscribe, like, share, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Bye. It's a Drew.
It feels good. Got it.